Hello, everyone, and welcome. We have decided to come into the group today live to talk about some ways to cope with being quarantined slash isolated in some cases for some of us, and to really just give you guys some idea of things you can do to take care of yourself at this time or in this moment. I'm Sharea. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of New Jersey, and I'm going to let everyone else introduce themselves.
And I'm Rebecca Finaro. I work with Sharea, and right now I'm a licensed social worker, soon to be licensed clinical social worker. I'm excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Wary, and I'm a life coach at the RS Counseling and Wellness Center. I work with Sharea and Rebecca as well.
All right, Sherry, I'm going to ask if you can you turn your volume up just a little because you're really low. And I don't know if it was.
So is that better?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So what we're going to do now is kind of get started, and you can join us either in the gratitude group or you can join us directly in the Zoom, which you would have to go and register if you haven't already registered to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca's going to get started on kind of talking about some of the things that may have happened related to being in a societal trauma and epidemic that we're in currently.
Yeah, so right now, what I would call this is like a group trauma that a lot of us are experiencing right now, because we're all experiencing the impact of this on some sort of a level, because we're being told, we have to quarantine, we have to social distance, we're not allowed to kind of go about our daily lives the way that we would. So it's kind of upending a lot of people's lives in different ways. And I feel like a lot of us are, experiencing some type of anxiety with it, and different worries and concerns just about, what's going to happen, and just about, how, we can function. So for me, I think a big way of coping would be to start to utilize different mindfulness skills. So for me, because, I'm in my apartment, having to work from home, not really allowed to go out for many different things unless it's essential. So I think for me right now, just being able to be mindful and try and be present in the moment really helps, especially with not being so anxious about, okay, what's going to happen? When is this going to slow down? When are we going to be able to get back, to work? So instead of focusing on all of that, I'm trying to be mindful with, what I'm doing, mindful with my work, even just, practicing, mindfully, even if I'm just, watching Netflix, trying to be mindful with it instead of scrolling through my phone at the same time. I know one thing that Sharea does is she colors, so she's mindful while she colors. So that's another good coping skill to use, because I think right now it's important to start to kind of look at the things that are in our control and the things that we can do right now, instead of looking at everything that's not in our control. Because for me, that always helps, looking at what can I control, what can I do for myself right now, instead of, what are the things that aren't working right now. So for me, I know what's in my control right now is to still do, the best work that I can as an employee. I know that I, can still take care of myself by, being mindful of what I eat, or, practicing meditation or reading, something like that. So I think right now, practicing mindfulness is, a really good coping skill. And I think it really helps to, ground us, and to just, I'm
sorry about that. Hello. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to mute your video unless you want to stay on with us. It's up to you.
I was just trying to fix my audio. Sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I didn't hear the last part really well.
Okay.
The part about coping, about mindfulness. So I was just saying with coping and mindfulness that I feel like using mindfulness is a really good coping skill in this moment, because, we're a lot of things aren't in our control right now. So with mindfulness, it kind of helps to bring us back to the present, kind of focus on what it is in my control right now. What can I do right now to take care of myself, to take care of my family, instead of worrying about, what's going to happen next week? When is this going to be over? So I was saying, for me, I try and be mindful just with the work that I'm doing. So trying to focus on, that work in the moment. Sharea likes to mindfully color. So that's something that, she uses. And even if you're just like watching Netflix, because I know that's what a lot of people are doing now, trying to be mindful while doing that. So yeah, that was kind of the end of what I was saying.
All right, so Sherry, what are some things that you're doing?
So first thing that I had to do, I had to limit my time on social media because just a lot of people, understandably, are really afraid. And so for me, it's that because I'm in a place where I'm of course concerned about what's going on. I also want to make sure that I continue to stay in a positive mindset, like Rebecca was talking about, with just focusing on what you can control. And so part of making sure that I continue to focus on what I can control and what I can do is not constantly being fed just reminders of what you can't control. And so even with the news, I stopped watching the news. What I'll do is that at the end of the night or maybe first thing in the morning, I'll check and just see just what's the latest updates that I need to know. So even when it came to, okay, we were put on shutdown, in my town, okay, I got the update about that, and then that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, watching the news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then I've been connecting with friends, whether that's in group chats. Also, like I'm a person of faith, and so I've been listening to inspirational messages from people, whether that's with my church, how we're doing services online now, or from other, preachers that I follow. And then I've been doing things that I enjoy. So,
So Sherry, they're telling me that your audio is still very low. They can't hear you. Like on
okay, so I have it turned all the way up, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Let me see if this is better. Hold on.
Okay.
But I think that's really good to consider how much negative input from that you can control and which is in your control can you actually participate in or take away. Like, so for me, I'm a one time a day at this point watching news. I was at earlier in the quarantine, I was watching it more than I probably even watch it in general. And I found that it was starting to kind of like be a routine I started to pick up. And I was like, oh no, this is too much of a fear-based approach to the information. The information is already traumatic. It's already difficult to receive. And then I felt like the way that the news presents it is even more fear-based. I think it started to kind of work on me with some of like the conspiracy theorists. And it basically, I guess in my own mind, it became more pressure to be participating in those type of things than it was to actually just cut it back for myself. And so I did the same with not just the news, but also social media.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you with that, because that was something that I was noticing as well, that a lot of times the news, it was more like fear-based instead of also looking at, I guess, some of the positives that were coming out of it. Like they weren't really reporting on the number of people who were recovering. It was more like you were constantly just hearing about like death tolls and stuff like that. And I was like, but what about the people who are recovering, or the positive cases, are they going down? So I definitely think that, limiting time on like social media or limiting time looking at the news is definitely something that is more helpful, because then we're able to actually, go about our day-to-day life and not constantly be worried about, okay, like what's happening and what are all like the bad things that are happening with this.
So what are some other things that if anybody wants to share some other things that they're doing or finding in this time that's helping them, we will give you an opportunity to, well, can't raise your hand in this version of Zoom, but if you want to say in the chat that you were like to say what you're doing as for the whole group, we can unmute you. Or you can unmute yourself, I think, too, in this setting that I have it in. All right, we got to get some things that we're doing. So if we're not doing the mindfulness, and that's one option that we talked about, shutting down the news. The other things that I would suggest for most people is to consider doing some level of calming activity in the moments when they feel themselves escalated with anxiety or escalated with emotions related to what's going on. So for example, you might do a body scan, you might do deep breathing, you might do and it's really for you just to ground in the moment so that you can kind of reframe and start the moment over. So that way you are back in control of how you're processing the emotions coming in. So I am doing a lot more grounding activities, even professionally, because I'm seeing a lot more people. I've had a few people return. I have some people saying in the group right now that they are playing word games or different types of games with their friends across states. And so those are really great ideas. So making sure the trainings that I'm doing over this last week, Rebecca and I have done trainings for different public health, and I'm coming up with some colleges. And one of the things that we're working on making sure people think up front about planning to deal with anxiety versus waiting until the emotional levels are high. So you want to think about your safety, your connectedness, and your hope. Those three areas are going to help you to kind of define what things you need to do to deal with anxiety. So do I feel safe? Do I feel like I'm in a safe place or safe at home? Different things like that. If I do, then my next thing is, am I being connected? Am I not isolating myself? Am I connected to my family, my friends, the world in a positive way, not just in the sense that, because I have people who are like watchers on my Instagram or Facebook. They don't interact, they don't do anything, but they know exactly what I'm going through. And then they'll say something in a conversation. I'm like, I never told you that, but it's something they saw on the Instagram or social media. And because you're not participating, you don't have an equal relationship. So participating, even in social and virtual opportunities to connect with people. And then the last one is hope. Because we know others are recovering, because we know that other countries are farther along in dealing with the epidemic, that means that there is hope that there will be a time when things will get better, right? And for us to start coping, we have to be able to make sure we're framing our emotions in those areas. Are we really safe? Are we feeling safe? And then countering any negative thoughts around not feeling safe. Are we feeling connected? If I'm not, am I making an effort to reach out to actually resolve relationships? And then lastly, do I have hope? And if I don't, where can I find it? And that's where we have to be more strategic right now, because we're not in our regular social relationships at work. We're not in our regular social relationships with friendships and how we normally connect with each other. But we can still find hope in knowing that other countries may be further along and there are people recovering. That does not negate the reality of the trauma. It does not negate the reality of what we're dealing with as a whole. But what it does is give you the opportunity to ground yourself, ground yourself, calm yourself, and have opportunities to relax while things feel chaotic and out of control in our lives. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I mean, for me, just my hope is really what's been helping me to stay calm. Like you said, like it's not neglecting the real pain that it's gone through, and the fact that we have lost people, unfortunately, through it. But I'm still here, and so I have to live in hope. If I get caught up on what has happened to everyone else in a sense where that's the only thing I focus on, then I'm now at risk at not making it either. And so I definitely agree with you with just having hope, is that for those of us that are still here, is that there's still an opportunity for us to experience the other side. And like you all have said, just about there are people recovering, there are countries that are on the other side of this. And so we can look to that and other things for hope to help us to be able to not just focus on what's going wrong, but to see the opportunities for what can go right.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that too. And just knowing that, because I know for me, it always helps to just remember, like, there's going to be an end to this. Like, this isn't going to be for forever. And this is just what we have to do right now to, like, flatten the curve, like they say. So all of us who are staying home, like, we're doing the work that we need to do in order to help out with this, in order to also, like, keep other people safe. And I think, like, the whole part about connection is also really important with this, because I feel like even though it's easy to be isolated in this time period, I feel like we can still be connected with people. And I feel like we're really fortunate that we have the technology that we do, where we can have group FaceTimes, and we can, even like doing this where we're staying in Zoom and we're able to go live and talk. So it's, even though we're not in person, we're still able to have some kind of connection with people. So I feel like we're fortunate that we're at least able to do that and have some kind of a connection with people.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was, and we mentioned it a little bit, that the reality is that we are going through what is considered a group trauma, a social trauma, whatever way you want to look at it, we're all being impacted. And so one of the other things I wanted to talk about is, because even with being hopeful, we still have to respect the precautions. Mm-hmm. And make sure that in our hopefulness and in our connectedness, in our needs for those things, that we don't violate the precautions, so that we can get out of this scenario sooner than later, right? So I'm being very respectful that I may not be the person that immune system is compromised, but there is people that I care for and love that has compromised immune systems. And so I'm very mindful of, every moment that I'm outside, that I'm making sure that I'm under the precautions, staying at a good distance, trying not to, or keeping myself covered in a sense, and making sure that I'm taking care of myself so that I can help others. So I think that's an important way also to cope, which is to actually practice precautions that benefit you as well as others, because you may have the best immune system in the world, but someone you know or care for may not. So just being really mindful. And then the other thing is, because I love outside and I love the sun, is that finding those moments to still get outside within those precautions. So I go out to my patio. I am trying to suck up any sun that we get, because we've had some really gloomy days over here. And I try to make sure that at least once a day I'm doing something in my backyard, or taking a walk, or doing something where it's not just strictly being in the house, but respecting the precautions at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep up with the Facebook at the same time. So you have to apologize. I apologize for me putting my head down so many times. But this is new for me. Although this technology is not new for me when I'm using it individual in this whole like social media world, this is very, very new for me, because
it's different to multitask.
Yeah, like I'm not really good at this multitasking. Yeah. But I think it's important for us now to give everyone else an opportunity to kind of say what their needs are right now. So if you're in the Facebook, you can write any questions or anything you would like us to talk about related to coping at this time. Or if you're in the Zoom chat, you can do the same, because we do have people in both locations. All right. Trying to give everybody a chance, so I don't have to take up all the talking, because you guys know I will keep talking. So what is everybody watching? Let's go there. Like, I've watched some really great stuff on Netflix that I think, because I don't always have the time. Oh, the other thing that I've been doing, I'll be right back to Netflix, is that I've been doing all of these free workouts online, and I've been trying to put them in other groups for people to join me. But if you haven't already, and they're usually every day at 6 o'clock, I put them in both my groups that I really work in, and I absolutely love them. Like today, she's doing weights. I'm actually going to join the weights as well. I got them all out there and ready. But find an opportunity, if you don't already work out and take that portion of taking care of yourself serious. This is the perfect time to get a couple free samples of what people are doing. So there's 2 gyms in my area that have gotten classes live as well too now, that are doing like Zumba, weights, I guess it's called HIIT, like the intervals, and it's just a whole lot of different free opportunities for people if you haven't already seen the ones I've posted. But I would recommend, if you see me put the dance ones in there, put your sneakers on and get in there and just start moving, because even if you don't get the dances, by the time I'm done, I'm almost at like 7,000 steps. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's like fun too to do. Yeah.
I was going to do a watch party, but I was like, I'm not confident in my moves.
And then there's also been a lot of artists who have been given free concerts as well. So that's one thing I've been watching, like on Instagram. I've seen them mostly on Instagram. There's been a few on Facebook. Yeah. But several artists from several genres have been doing free concerts, which has like been pretty cool too.
Yeah, like I've done. Yeah, that's the other thing I've loved doing right now. And I'm like, well, we're going to be stuck here. And also on Instagram, they have like the battle of the producers. So like they'll have like producers who did a certain songs, and they will battle each other to see whose song was the biggest hit. And so like last night, and I don't know the man's name, but he's like written a lot of Beyonce songs, and he was battling Manny Fresh, which is like the hot boys down in the Louisiana area. So I don't really know their music because I don't really like Southern music, sorry. But or Southern rap, I would say. But it was really fun to watch them go back and forth with the different songs that they produced, and you'd be so shocked with some of like the ballads or the different songs that they did. So we have a question. I'm trying to read it at the same time. Give me 1 second. So someone's asking in the group, how do we get to the Zoom class that I'm talking about? What I'll do is once we shut down, I will actually tag you on the link to get to that person. As long as you have a Facebook, she usually does it on Facebook Live. So I will make sure to either respond to you or reply to you in the group with her information. And she's always 6 o'clock for 6 days or 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and then 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. And then we rest on Sunday. I still do stretches because I'm in this 100-day challenge with myself. Another there. The other thing I see in our chat, we have, give me 1 second to read it. Okay, so we have a question related to feeling disconnected to God, disconnected to prayer, and how like during this time it's more difficult to stay connected, and even have, I'm going to assume, even have a level of hope in that relationship. And I think I am going to speak a little bit about grief. Because I think when we think about traumas, we don't always equate them to the same types of anxieties that come up when they are very parallel, because we are probably having traumatic responses that reflect grief, and some of the same stages of grief. It becomes real easy to be disconnected from what we believe, not even just what we believe, but also what we practice, but then the feeling of the two together. And so one of my recommendations in general, when it's just grief, I would probably say would be relevant here, is to continue to practice, continue to offer up that honesty within your prayers and within your conversations, making sure that you're clear in your prayers that you're having a difficulty at this point to even say how you feel, or even know how you feel, or even to feel connected because of all the difficulties that the world is presenting you with. And so I would say not stopping your routine of the actual ritual of prayer, but also making sure within those times that you are not just doing the ritual, but you're also incorporating a conversation about really what's true for you, right? God, I mean, for most of you, you know that I lost my mother last year. And so that has been a major factor in my relationship over the last year and change, where it's really been to be very honest, I'm disconnected and miss the essence of what I feel God is in my relationship with him. And so I'm actively participating in that until I was able to reconnect. And so I would say not stopping, participating, and being honest as to what you're really feeling, because in my own beliefs, I do believe that God hears us even when we're not willing to tell him the truth. So try doing it so you can also express it and receive a better form of connection because it's honest, right? That does not resolve, that may not resolve the actual disconnect immediately, but what it can do is allow you to stay connected enough to reconnect. Does that make sense? Anyone else want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm a person of faith, and I would say to anyone, it's just to look at, like, what does your faith teach, about how God responds to you in times of good and happiness, but also in times of sadness as well. And just knowing that, that God is also, that he's still near, even in times where it feels like that he's distant. Like for me, for my faith, my faith informs me and tells me that God is acquainted with sorrow. He's acquainted with grief. And so it's that just because we feel those things, that doesn't make our faith less real, or it doesn't mean that our faith is no longer present. It just means that we are human beings having human experiences. And so, we're beings who, emotions are innate to us. And so we don't have to use our emotions as necessarily a guide as far as how serious or how committed we are to our faith. Is that regardless of what emotions we are experiencing, our faith is still there, and our God is still there to be able to respond and to be there inside of us, to be there with us, even in the midst, to be there with us in the midst of our grief, our sadness, our trauma, wherever it is that we're feeling that, and that he is still there, or our God is still there to be able to help us through that as well.
And there's no wrong way to feel at this time. Like, one of the things that I hope that people understand is that it's okay not to be okay during these times, that there's no perfect or mastering of a traumatic experience like this. And because there is no perfect way, we are processing and dealing with it and going through it together. So this gives us an opportunity to connect with each other with that honesty. Even I think in my clinical hat, I've seen people trying to work through it by overworking. I've now seen people trying to feel resilient by stating that they're fine and everything is good, when in reality, you can see them falling apart. And the reality is that even after they're telling me they're fine, I let them know that, it's okay to not be fine. That it's okay to not know how this is going to work out specifically, but to still have hope that it will, right? So those are the same things that I would say when it comes to our faith, that being able to know that disconnected feeling doesn't mean it will last forever. And being able to continue to connect by participating in your faith and in your prayers and in your process is extremely important. And so literally, probably, and just to be 100, probably over the whole year, I'm reading the word, and then word for me being the Bible. And literally I'm reading it and like, all right, God, well, maybe tomorrow, like, maybe tomorrow it'll feel like it did before my mother has went on. Right. So that's a process. And some days I still resort back to that. Other days I'm like, okay, I felt you there. And so I would say continue to participate and be honest in where you are. And that's my personal way of dealing with it. I'm sure that there's other means, but I also don't want you to give up on what you know has been a resource for you and has been a resource that has got you through other difficult times or other things, because this is the time when that faith or those beliefs can be most useful when you're struggling.
Yeah, like faith isn't really useful until you have to use it. You know, when you think about, you know, even just in physical situations with your muscles, is that you don't build your muscles if you just sit on the couch
Now that's
and
the
eat
truth.
potato chips all day, right? Is that you build your muscles by picking up the weight, like Sharea said, she's going to be getting it in,
Yes.
you know, after this broadcast. So she's going to have her weights. And so the process of lifting what is heavy, that's when actually your strength is developed. And so our faith is made for hard times as well. And so just like Sharea was saying, is that using still running to your faith, still surrendering whatever you're feeling to your faith, is that this is the time that your faith was built for.
Mm-hmm. And then just enduring the process. I don't know if that makes sense, because the process, like I said, I mean, some days it still feels like yesterday for me. Like it still feels like it happened yesterday, and the disconnect is real, and I'm not even able to be present in any prayer, but I'm still doing it. And so just being able to be honest and accept that this is a process, even as we all experience this trauma, this is a process that is heavy for all of us in multiple areas. And one thing I will say about complex trauma is that it hits most areas of us, right? So we're talking faith now, but we can also talk about how we're taking care of ourselves. Are we eating right? Are we actually getting up? Are we having a schedule that our body is not on some kind of cycle or off cycles? So, like, what are we doing to make sure that we are still caring for ourselves, even as it's tougher, right? So, like, literally, I prefer not to work out. I'm not gonna lie to you, like, but I got a goal I'm trying to reach. But on top of that, it helps me with my mood. It helps me to feel better, right? And I also am really cognizant now, because I'm not getting enough vitamin D, that my and all of us should be cognizant of this, that I need to increase my vitamin D, the actual vitamin, or I need to eat foods that have that vitamin in it, so that way I won't start to sink, because depression is also attached to the same vitamin when it's that deficiency in terms of our brain. So it impacts us. So knowing that you have to participate in things, and now even more so because you're dealing with or going through a joint traumatic event. And so being able to find what those things are that you need and do them. And do them in a way that pushes through not wanting to do them. And if you find, and this is just being serious, if you find that you can't muster up that on your own, there are so many opportunities to get support. We are going to be trying to do a group every week, regardless if it's one person or 100. We want to be able to make sure that the voice of healing / support is there, right? And so this is one option, but then there's also the option of virtual therapy. There's also the option of reconnecting with your therapist, even if it's just for a short time. I've reconnected with mine over this last year, because obviously when I shared about grief, I also want to make sure I'm taking care of myself and being honest with what I'm processing. So being okay with not being okay also includes getting support. And so my wish for everyone is safety, connectedness, and hope. Like, those are my 3 things. I'm not asking for a whole lot. And I think when I think of safety, that means your security, your stability with food, as well as health, but also financial stability, things that we all may have risk areas in. When I say connected, it's not just being connected to an intimate partner, but your friends, your coworkers, anyone that you can actually reach out to stay connected to. And when I say hope, that we all understand that tomorrow we have a different opportunity, and we don't know what that definition of this ending is, but it's going to. So, all right. I think, I don't know what time it is. You know, I can talk all day, people. We have about 15 more minutes. I actually enjoyed that question. So and you can ask the question in the Zoom meeting privately and make it directed to me, and then I can answer it as a group. So if you're not in our group Zoom meeting and you're still just on the Facebook, I put the link in there if you wanted to join to ask for a private question. I just wanted to make sure that we give you guys the full time that we promised, which was an hour. So we are here. If you have any more questions, I think this is a good time for us to try to see if we can answer them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Go.
So I was wondering.
Let me take this earphone out so I can hear you on the real time because it sounds like really bad. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like kids and boundaries during this time. So I'm a working mother, and now I was really excited about spending more time with the kids, and that's what I wanted to do. I was thinking, it's like, oh, I'll look forward to summer and we'll do this and we'll do that. And summer seems to have come early because we get to do a whole lot of things. But I've also noticed that my kids are 4, and what I thought was going to be more time together and really enjoyable, I'm noticing it almost seems like insatiable for my daughter in particular. Mm-hmm. She's really clingy. She's, we can't do enough. I'll like have a schedule and be like, this is your time to play by yourself. This is when I'm working, and then we're going to do this. And I'm following the schedule, and it's almost like it's not enough. Like, it's time for you to nap. I want to nap right next to you at your foot and be touching you the entire time. Or it's time for me to work out. Well, can you hold me while you work out? You said you like weights. Like it's almost like it's not enough. And I'm just like, I'm more accessible than I have ever been to you in 4 years. And I'm just wondering, what is a good way to understand like a balance and meeting her needs without making her feel neglected? Like, oh, you're here, but you're still not here for me.
So my answer is going to be connected to age first, because you mentioned their ages and I kind of knew, but I think 5 and under is, and this is just respect for all parents. All parenting is difficult at different ways, at different ages, and even more so during this current difficult time. However, 5 and under, the level of distress that kids may feel is not always they're not able to identify it, but they recognize that there is a level of change. And because they're benefiting, I want you to hear this, because in a way they're benefiting from it because of the additional connection, now they want more, right? And so you're doing one of the first things that is very helpful, which is creating that schedule, sticking to it, and trying to really make sure that you're sticking to it in a way that's honest for you too. Now includes the boundaries, right? And so if you have the opportunity to have a participating second parent, making sure that you guys are splitting those insatiable times of need now that they have more access to you, even between each other, right? So being able to say, I want to give you all that you need, but I am not going to be able to give it to you all on my own. So being able to, even if you do have that, because I want to come back to possibly a parent who may be a single parent and not have that, but splitting the level of need that they're going to have because now they have access to you. Kids are not going to create boundaries because they don't know them. That's just the natural developmental. And then under 5, even more so, which is why things like free play and all that kind of discussions that people have is important, but it also can be exhausting for the parent, right? And so being able to have that joint relationship, if there is one, and making a schedule even amongst the two of you to kind of separate, I'm going to take my walk outside and no one else is going with me, right? And then vice versa for your partner and spouse, right? So that way you can actually put boundaries on your emotional output, right? Because that's exhausting. And no one is going to say you love your kids less because you want to take a break. That's human, right? And so being able to really actually put that in place for yourself is going to be extremely important if you can. Now, because we're going to go single parent for a second, I am not the biggest fan of putting anything in front of kids as their only option. But I'm also going to say this, we're in some very real times right now. If that means they have to watch the TV for 6 hours straight, you've seen them for literally how was 24 minus 6, right? I think they can handle a little bit more extra screen time. I think right now there could be a lot more play activities that don't include mom and dad, or mom and mom, or mom or dad and dad. That's just making sure that when you're creating those schedules and those lists, you are so including that they have independent time. For especially kids who are younger, making sure that you do that in a way that still makes them, that still have your eye on them, right? Like, you don't have to participate. And when they're saying things like, I want to sit at your foot and sleep, no, there's your bed. Like, and although that might sound, well, no, that's a little, no, it's giving them a boundary that says, even I need a timeout. Even you need your own individual time, and being able to stick to it. And when they're not able to give that to you on your own, finding a support that you can ask to give that for you. Let me walk outside in the back and close the door behind me. Let me take a walk down the street to the, like, I've never been to the mailbox as much as I have in the last couple weeks, just so I could go. And we're not getting that much mail, but finding ways that make your boundaries concrete, but then sharing the responsibility when your kids especially are under the age of like 5. I would even probably go up to 9 and under, where now they are at their 3-week mark of being quarantined. Developmentally, that feels like prison, right? So even though it's fun in some ways, it's also exhausting for them to have to not have their normal schedules as well, just like us. And so now they're almost expecting you to give them everything again. And so some of them are going to regress in a way that is honest to the developmental age, and also expectation, because this is new for all of us. So boundaries, I think, would be about really setting them and getting the support. I don't know if that makes sense. If you can. If you can't, then your support might have to be, for now, something that you normally wouldn't do, which is, hey, that little Netflix kid station is going to be running all day for a little bit. Not saying that I would promote that at all. But for this time, I'm willing to say I would promote it until we can get through this together. Because if not, then you're going to also not just get resentful, but you're also going to get tempered. Like, because you're human, and your response is going to get a little bit more short than you would used to. So those things that you know you need, you have to take them, right? Hide in the bathroom. I saw someone the other day, literally joking, but they were in their car painting their nails. As the mother of young kids, that was her break. And that may be what needs to happen in this setting that we have never been used to before. And so also do not feel like you're alone in that feeling, because I've heard that a number of times. And it is absolutely, I think for women specifically, it's an honest emotion that deals with the amount that we invest in our kids. And that is a positive. But right now, because we have a whole 24 hours and no break, you got to find that break for yourself and be okay, and still know that you're a great mother, you're a great parent, and your kid is going to get through this as well. So I hope that helped. It doesn't resolve it immediately, I know, but I hope that helped. Anybody else have anything? I know Rebecca.
Well, I know I definitely agreed with what you were saying towards the end there, because I feel like so often mothers feel like, I shouldn't be taking a break, or, if I go out and I take this break and I, paint my nails, like I'm a bad mom, or they feel guilty about it. And it's like, in this time, like, don't feel guilty about taking that break, because it's like summer has come early. Now kids are getting potentially like a 6-month summer.
Yeah.
So like, you need to take those breaks. And I feel like now a lot of parents are not just parents, but they're also like teachers now too. So I see a lot of people who, like some of my friends who have kids, I've seen them, they are, teaching their kids during the day, recreating like gym class and, doing that kind of stuff. And then they're also at the same time working. Yeah. So it's like, you're working and taking care of the kids. And whereas when the kids go to school, you kind of have, more of that time just to focus on one thing. Now people are having to multitask. So it's like, don't feel guilty about needing to take that break and needing to take time for yourself. Because it's also important to take time for yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to, emotionally take care of the kids too. So it's taking care of yourself emotionally, so then you can function and do everything else that you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Sherry, you good? That was a great question.
I just had some background noise that I didn't want to come over the live feed.
No, you're fine. That was a really good question because I've heard that a lot this week in terms of our children kind of exhausting their parents and being maxed out and that being okay. Like, again, it being okay in a natural response to something we've never dealt with before. So I am so glad that we got to do this. We are going to be attempting to do this at least once a week. And it will be free. I initially wasn't going to make it free, but I feel like I really just want people to have some level of support because I'm watching people, and even just when I see Facebooks and stuff, I'm just like, oh, they are exhausting. So if they're exhausting on their social media, I can't imagine what they're doing. And I want to just be able to help where I can or where we can. And part of us doing the good work that we enjoy doing is also offering during this time of crisis that you're not alone. And so I hope that everyone who has joined us, even if you're just listening, has gotten something from this. We'll continue to do this weekly, and I'm glad that you guys came here and were with me. So thank you. Sharea, with us.
Yes,
I can start saying us. I was such a one-man team for a long time, so with us.
This is good. It's really great seeing everyone and seeing people's faces. Being able to, have this discussion. So this was good.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that we were able to do this. I'm glad that we're able to, provide some sort of support, where we can. All
right. So if everyone, you're welcome very much. We will be back. I will still be putting up my, whenever I do take the class, because some nights I have clients, so I'm missing some of those 6 o'clocks. But I will be putting it up in my 2 groups every time I'm doing it. I will also, Lisa, you should have joined us. I'm sorry. We're delayed. But I will be making sure I put it up for everyone. And I'm going to also still reply to the person who was interested in how to get to those Zumba classes or those dance classes that I'm talking about online. Hi, Diane. Look. So I'm gonna figure this out. By the time we do this, I'm a master Facebook / Zoom / I'll try to put it in Instagram. You want to say anything, Lisa? Hold on, I'm gonna mute you for a second.
Oh,
you're
my
unmuted.
Goodness. No, I don't want to say anything.
Come on, family.
I want to say I'm so happy that we are here doing this, and this is like so needed. I see all of these like people just going live, and it's just like exhausting watching some people just going live, just doing these like rants and doing all kinds of stuff. So it's so great to see meaningful conversations where people can actually get some real answers, responses, and ideas for what to do.
All right. Thank you. Look, I'll be checking in anyway. All right, everyone. I am so grateful that you were able to share this hour with us. We will be back next week during a lunch break hour. So I think it's going to be like 1 o'clock on the 9th. So we'll try to have different options because people's schedules are very different. So I'm trying to do a variety of options and times. So again, everybody, remember safety, connectedness, and hope. And we will see you next week. Take care.
Yes, bye.